Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. It's an educational channel, and this is a new feature called Your Blind Side. And we try to check out different things that have come up in my life that I think are relevant to the overall info war that's going on out there, and things that you might need to protect yourself from, or look out for, or watch your blind side. And I think last time we were talking about, how in the um, in the Old Testament, um, there isn't any uh, real morality. You've got the Ten Commandments, and you've got, um, you know, some Psalms and Proverbs. Uh, but in general, Yahweh is just wanting obedience. It doesn't matter, you know, what your intentions are. Doesn't matter what your, um, you know, where your mind's at. It doesn't matter if you're trying to do the right thing or if you have good, um, you know, good morals. What matters is if you're obeying or not. And so, I think that's, um, I don't know, something that gets missed. Also, um, I think we were also talking about King James and how King James was a big witch burner, especially before he became king of England, when he was just king of Scotland. And, you know, he's the one that's supposed to be responsible for putting together the English version of the Bible, uh, and that those codes are in there. The language, and it's both Old and New Testament, but um, it's there's going to be language in there that's going to be uh, kind of triggered, uh, or at least jiggered to um, uh, the tendency toward uh, witch burning. Now, that's what I was saying about um, the right out there right now. I was saying that I don't really, I I'm I'm not on either side here with this info war. There's one side that I want to win because, but I believe it's kind of competing levels of mental illness. You know, one group is just utterly mentally ill, where they're just not even tracking with reality, and they have fallen in wholesale on violence, and the 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 positions that they're taking are, um, you know, have 5% approval. They're just, uh, they're doubling down on, you know, things that the average person just is like, I can't even believe that that you know, you're going with this. You haven't done any research on this at all. And it's pure emotion. But then the other side, which appears to be rational and um, based on reality, but then when you kind of peel it off another level and you get down to their belief systems, the blind patriotism, and the blind, religion out of a book, um, the Word of God, of course. Then, you know, that's also a mental illness. Now, it's a minor mental illness. It's like being scared of heights, or it's not it's not on the level that it's going to uh, destroy your society, or um, you, you know um, cause mass deaths. But as I was saying, it could slip into that. It could and has slipped into that, such as the Salem witch trials and the Inquisition, and other witch burnings and persecutions of innocents. Um, Now, sure, I'm sure some of the witches were guilty of whatever. But what I'm saying is that there's a hysteria that can build up because there's an anger under there, and so that is a mental illness, and it has to be paid attention to. Um, you really I feel like people really need to open up their Bibles and recognize that there's a psychological operation that's being played on you. Um, Now, I wanted to look at just real briefly here the things that can trigger your code, looking for codes in your ancient texts, especially your New Testament. It's a psychological operation. The New Testament was written by the Romans, and it was written as a psychological operation against the Jews. And um, Philo Judaeus, who was a person who I don't believe it actually existed, but he was one of the Jewish philosophers from Alexandria in the first century, early first century, and he was kind of a contemporary of so-called Jesus, and he taught that allegory or enigma is generally signaled by devices such as now these are what you look for in the text of your scriptures to recognize that there's a code being played on you, and that's when you open up your Josephus's War of the Jews, which is a parallel construction to the Gospels, and that's when you look for the codes. What you get is the doubling of a phrase, an apparently superfluous expressing in the text, the repetition of statements previously made. So, when they say something a couple times, there are no wasted words there in the New Testament. It's a psychological operation. It was written by the highest level of intelligence, intelligence with a capital I, you know, like spies and um, the Roman equivalent of the CIA. A play upon words, any peculiarity in a phrase, noteworthy omissions, striking statements, or numerical symbolism. And then he also says in Josephus, uh, enigmas are often signaled by the insertion of an obvious fable or fantasy within the flow of the historical narrative. Okay, so when you see these things, this is where you're supposed to be looking for the codes. And what you're looking for is parallels between Josephus and the New Testament. And they become utterly obvious once you start moving along. And, what they signal is that whoever wrote Josephus also wrote the New Testament. The authors are the same. And so that is um, maybe your homework for the evening. And you can tell me how it goes. But in the meantime, uh, thanks for tuning in and have a great day. Remember to watch your blind side.